Okay. You know, the problem with this book, it doesn't go in a straight line. So you have, let's say, the Stone Age, and let's say modern times. And these people start here, and they go here, then they go back here, then they go over here, then they go back here, and then here, and then here, and then here, and then maybe here, and then maybe here. And the thing is, none of the chapters have dates. None of the chapters have location. So they may be here, but you don't know where here is or what this time is here. And the bad guys are behind them, and the bad guys may be in this time frame, and our guys may be in this time frame, but then these guys go here, and these guys go here, and they run into each other here, and then they leave and go back here, and then the other ones go here, and then they go over here, and it's just a mess. And you have no idea. And the problem is that you could be like, hypothetically 1600 here, and the bad guys could be in 1650, but then you're going to go back to 1550, and then maybe back to 1800. It's all over the place. Well, welcome to the Dealer's Book Series. It's nice to meet you. I'm Christina Kristina. This is where we read book and talk about books. And I'm sorry I didn't get my previous notes, but I think if I kept my previous notes, this would be 20 hours long. So we have this thing that started. I'm not even sure. I mixed. Okay, so I started this quest here with the skin map. And even this book, it starts off mostly with Kit and Cosmos. And it's really hard to explain, and we'll get to an explanation in a minute. But it starts here. But the journey in here isn't all that straight, and you don't know where the good guys are and where the bad guys are into relationship to each other. Then we move to the Bone House. Now, a lot of stuff happens in here in a straight line. But in this one, the stuff goes like this. This stuff has already happened. This stuff is the stuff that happened before this stuff. So it's like this, because Mina did stuff here, and she did it here with the doctor in the pyramid in this thing. In this book, we're learning how she prepared for this book. This is all the stuff she did first. She tells Kit. She does all the stuff with Kit here. And then she tells him that she hasn't done that yet in this book. So some of the events in this book are before some of the events in here. And the problem is, you run into it again in here, where a lot of this is Kit trying to figure out what's going on here. And then at the end of this book, the world ends, because I think they should have gone back in time and got Arthur to stop what he did. They decided to do something else. But the best thing about these books, or sort of about these books, because I'm telling you, it's not a straight line. I'm telling you, you could be here and over here, and then go back here, and then go back here, and then maybe stop here in the middle for a while. I'm serious. It's just all over. So here we go. This is the worst because there's no way of explaining all the stuff that's going on. So, and we get some new characters in here which make no sense at all either. So, first, we had 2 new characters pop up. Clark, Cassie, and her father show up in this one. So here, look. You gotta, you know how if you watch a show and it's a 2-parter and it says to be continued, and then in the previous, when you get to part 2, they go previously on. So we're doing previously in. It appears that we left our questions in a bit of a cliffhanger in Damascus circa 1930. I didn't know what year it was till I read this sentence. I didn't know what year this was until I read this book. Where they gathered at Zetic Society headquarters on Hannah Street in the Old City. It should be recalled that the Society and its office functions as the nexus point for all those of goodwill who seek to understand the phenomenon of lay travel and what can be learned from it. From example, we learn that the certain cosmic events have set in motion that now threaten to bring apocalyptics of annihilation known as the end of everything. This discovery impelled a conclave of questers to discuss the impending cataclysm, which was happening as they were talking. It began when Kit Livingston innocently and inadvertently revealed that once, while streaming time with the venerable EU in the prehistoric Bone House, encountered the late great Arthur Flinders at the mystical location as the Spirit Well. How did he know it was Flinders Petrie? There could be no mistaking the man's identity because his torso was tattooed with the symbols representing his many and various journeys through time and space. When Kit saw him, Arthur was wading into the Well of Souls, another name for the Spirit Well, carrying the lifeless body of his wife. And he has his wife reincarnated, and that's the thing that I think they should have gone back to prevent. That's what I think they should have went to prevent it. And you'll have to forgive my computer, it's being held together by a binder clip. The disclosure was over by Rosemary Peelstick, for formerly a lay traveler herself, but lately hostess in residence at the Zetic Society headquarters. The venerable Mrs. P immediately grasped the significance of Arthur's action, and indeed the shock of hearing it was such that she lost control of her tea tray and sent the entire assemblage crashing to the floor. No catastrophe in itself, you think such messes are easily dealt with. Cassandra Clark was present at the scene and in an effort to be helpful, reached in her pocket and drew out her handkerchief with the aim of mopping up the spill. But her handkerchief has the squirrely screw on it. And when they were looking at it, it was losing its squirrely screw. Yes, ma'am. Would you like to read? How's my girl? How's my Sadie? Careful readers will remember that while this particular handkerchief was nothing more than an ordinary square of white cotton cloth, and one that Kathy used in all sorts of ways, it was most recently employed as a work surface in her attempt to revise and engineer one of the shadow lamp. Those clever devices had been helping guide our questers through the maze of portals and pathways constituting the illimitable network of ley lines. During her investigation, some of the rare earth contained within the shadow lamp spilled out onto the surface of the handkerchief and caught in the fibers. Before Cass could deploy the handkerchief as a mop, Kit perceived a faint yet unmistakable image on the cloth, a swirl with a straight line directly through the center and 3 separate dots. So it was the squirrely squirrel but then it had straight lines and some branches. So the world was coming to an end. It was branching off all these different hyperboles. Mina had one line, Burley had another line, Kit had another line, Cass was with him. So all this stuff is going on. And Lady Haven Freyas and Giles are off in the time of the Emperor. We really don't know what time it is, but see, all these people are on all these different locations, and none of them are going in a straight line. They're all going back and forth and jumping this way, this way. So, we're starting off with in chapter 1 with the at the space station in NASA, with the telescopes and stuff like that, and they're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And then Lord Burley is still in jail, and Engelbert is trying really, really hard to get him out of jail, because he attacked Engelbert, but after so many weeks in jail, Engelbert's decided that the man needs to go free. And he's really mean and nasty about it, Lord Burley, for quite a few weeks. And he slowly, very slowly, microscopically slowly, endures so much stuff in the prison cell that he slowly, very slowly, microscopically bends. But even then, he still has his evil intentions, because he's truly the bad guy in all of this. So then we have some stuff, and I'm not even sure. I kind of got lost in some of it. I couldn't follow it because it was jumping all over the place. The time frame was this way, this way, this way, this way, back way, up, down, that way. It was just going too many places, and I'm not exactly sure why I wrote this down. Oh, but a bird dies, and it's because it touched this tree, and this tree is has got magical powers, and it didn't make sense, but it was just really sad that the bird died. None of chapter 4 makes sense to me, although if you take it from the perspective that the world is ending. How did I? Okay. Alright, wait a second. I didn't get some of this until afterwards. Until after I got the impression that the author was trying to signal the end of the world. After kissing Julie, his wife of 35 years, goodnight, he closed his eyes in the bedroom of his suburban Chicago home, slept soundly, and woke the next morning to find himself surrounded by weary Aztec farmers discussing the baffling presence of this pale-skinned alien who had appeared in their midst. They decided he was a sky god, and despite his strong protests, uttered in a language they could not understand, the farmers took him to be the priest who gave him a collar of gold and established him in the temple of Tenochtitlan. In Laxar-Nagar district of Maobia, India, Serene Shah prepared breakfast for her 3 children who were getting ready for school. She fed them and sent them out the door with their lunch pails, only to return to the kitchen and find them still dawdling over their food. She assumed they were playing a trick on her and was giving them a good scolding when her husband appeared on the scene, wanting his breakfast. She would have gladly given him something to eat, except for the fact that he had eaten and departed for the office 40 minutes ago, and his dishes were still in the sink. And he gives many other instances of this stuff, and it doesn't hit you until later on what the author is trying to figure out. And then Lady Haven Freyas and Giles, who've been doing all this other stuff, has ended up in Constantinople, and that's apparently where they're going to stay for a very long time. They end up staying there and being happy there. Then in the next couple of chapters, Burley, Engelbert is trying to get Burley out of prison. He has suffered enough. There's that girly skew that I was trying to write before, and the 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 author goes to those unknown places and jumps out at you again. In Hiroshima, Japan, 3 school buses containing 67 children, their teachers, and classroom aides, and bus drivers disappeared on a field trip to nature reserve. The bus, operated by the Wycombe Perfect Educational Services Cooperative, left the school at 9:30 on what had become an annual outing. So far as it known, the 3 vehicles were last seen by passing motorists on Highway 24 only minutes after leaving the school. And they ended up in the middle of a field somewhere, and no one knows how they ended up in the middle of the rice farm. Doctors, nurses, and staff administrators beginning the morning shift at Georgetown Hospital were stunned and alarmed to find that the modern 2-story brick and glass 450-bed medical facility had been replaced by a single-story clapboard building, prompting investigators to reveal that each of the 150 beds was occupied by a wounded serviceman, neither of them U.S. Air Force or Navy. The patients, many of them, maintained that they had received their injuries during ongoing operations in the Northern Pacific Theater of Operations. Investigations continue amidst treasonous media attention, but no explanation to date has been offered. And then airplanes go missing in the triangle, and I didn't get it until later. You have to reading it, and you're like, what's going on? What's the author trying to tell us? Why are we coming to modern events? And then you have to think about it, that the author's trying to tell you that the world is ending, and this is all the stuff that's happening when the world is ending. So then we're back in the modern day with Tony again and the telescope, and they're trying to figure out what's going on with NASA, and they're doing all this investigation. Engelbert finally gets Burley released. He gets released into Engelbert's custody, and they get closer. They form a bond. Burley supposedly is going to kill Engelbert. He's got all this anger and frustration up with him, and he had this epiphany, whatever. He ends up in a church. He relates to God, and he claims he's on this new path, and he tries to prove everybody that he's on this new path, and it may or may not be real. So you'll have to see that with the book. But it's a lot confusing because now most of the characters are working together now. They're all in one location, sort of, kind of. So they all get together and they try and make their way back to Prague. Mina ends up with a broken arm. And they have so many issues. Mina imagines her life with Kit. Kit, however, imagines his life with Cass. And got some situations here. Let me see if I can find this. Okay, Mina, you lead the way. I'm doing the best I can, Wilhelmina thought to herself, and led them from the tomb. By the time she climbed the stairs and they're at the tomb where she rescued them in the first place. That where Wilhelmina rescued them when Cosmo had died. And that happened in the first book. And it's just unnerving how the author goes back and forth, and the timeline is all over the place. By the time she had climbed the stairs and stepped into the heat and light of the wadi, she knew what she had to do. There was no way she could allow herself to become caught up in the progression of events for whatever alternate time or dimension Kit and Giles had inhibited. Who knew where they would lead? She would see them on their way, and then, as she seemed destined to ping-pong through Egyptian history, She would continue her self-imposed mission to find Thomas Young, and he doesn't come to. He has a bad ending. Although I'm thinking that when they fixed Tom, they might have fixed him too. Um, uh, so then they're talking again. Cass fished the square of cloth from her pocket and carefully unfolded it before passing it to Kit. He held the cloth against the wall and began moving down toward the little row of painted symbols until he came to the one he recognized. This is it. Handing the torch to Cass, spreading the cloth, he held it to the flat wall beside the symbol. It's a perfect match, identical twins. Do you know this one was? Just a hunch. These symbols are on the skin map and everywhere else. This one is probably too. How did it get there? More to the point, how did that symbol get on the handkerchief? Cass bent her head close to the wall and studied the painted symbol and the faint, dusty image on the square cloth. Kit watched. He could almost see the gears spinning in her head, eyes glinting in the firelight. She turned her face to them and asked, "You know anything about quantum entanglement?" "Let's pretend I don't." "Well, briefly, any atomic particle that has ever interacted with another atomic particle becomes forever entangled or connected. Scientists have known about this for years. They've documented on the quantum level and they're even able to trace entanglements in larger objects, not just dust particles." "Well, this is Dad's specialty, not mine. But I grew up with this stuff anyway. The point is, anything that has ever been in contact is connected, which, when you think about it, is pretty much everything that ever existed. If you care to trace it back far enough to the Big Bang and everything that followed, all matter in the universe is entangled, connected some way. Um, like an outline of the bird caught in mid-flight. But okay, the rare earth on the cloth came from Gustos, remember? And the powder was never anywhere near the yew tree. But you were, Cass encountered. You were holding the shadow lamp when it blew out. Also, don't forget that the ruined lamp was in direct contact with the cloth while I was working on it. That's probably how the connection was made. It doesn't take much, but I'm guessing that any event strong enough to melt your shadow lamp was strong enough to entangle everything in the vicinity, both them, and subsequently you were there, and that was enough. I'm entangled. We all are. There's no way around it. We're all entangled with everything from cradle to grave and beyond. So you really have to read it to understand what's going on. The author throws a whole bunch of other fatal events in the future, the running of the bulls at a football game, the world coming to the end in modern times with astronomers and stuff like that. There was also they talk about the tree of life. She goes and finds Dr. Thomas. Wilhelmina finds Thomas again. And stuff goes haywire, and the world is on its brink of ending. And then this particular thing happens, and some of it's fixed, some of it's not fixed. You really have to read the book to get the gist of it. I do like the follow up at the end though, by the author going, "Hey, look, this is what happened," and it makes the rest of the book understandable. So I hope you will check this out. So this is your journey. Here is the skin map and the bone house and the spirit well and the shadow lamp and the fatal tree. And I've done podcasts on all of these books. Please check all those out. Do the little binge read with me. And please hit the like and subscribe. Don't forget to watch my Star Trek Next Generation recap on Fridays. Also on Friday, I do an if then. If you like this author, then maybe you like that author. We started with the Bridgertons. If you like the Bridgertons, then maybe you like Joanna Lindsay's Mallory, Stephanie Lawrence Sinsters. If anybody needs a television show, it's the Sinsters. There's over 30 books in those. Your main characters become backup characters in future books, and backup characters become main characters. and it's progressive. There's always catching up with what happened to so and so in previous books. It's a beautiful series. It should be on television, so please check that out. We did forensics, we did homicide. I'm going to do another homicide because once you stop looking for something, then you find it. I'm on this path there. Please check out the one on Native American Indians. And I found a couple more books after that. I'm going to do a brief update or part two, something like that. So if you could please hit the like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good one.